Hey everybody, today I'm taking a look at Ys, which is a board game dating back to 2004, published by Ystari Games. This one takes 60 to 90 minutes to play and accommodates 3 to 4 players. So I've got the older version of the game here, and there is a slightly newer version with a slightly more attractive cover. So this is an area majority, a commodity speculation and bidding/auction bluffing game that takes place on a board that looks like this. So as you can see here, the main feature is this big wheel which is divided into 4 quarters, and each of those 4 quarters is further divided into 3 sections, which can be really important when it comes to divvying out the area majority bonuses. Each of these different quarters is assigned with one of these bonus cards which players can acquire throughout the game. Randomly, each of these sections are also going to be allocated one of these ship cards, which is important because basically the objective of the game is to, of course, acquire as many victory points as you can, and a big portion of that is gained by acquiring these different gems. Also, you've got this different section of the board here, which is the market, which is quite an important part of the game, and I've also allocated 3 different gems here based on a 5th ship card, so these can randomly go on any of these rows, and I'll explain the importance of that later. You also have this little track here which kind of shows the value of the 4 of the 6 different types of gems. So you've got the 4 gems here, but you do have an alternative 2 here. You've got the black ones, which have a more fixed value in terms of their points, and the white ones, which are essentially wilds. So all these different gems start at the same value, but these will be going up and down as the game goes on, which will determine how many points each of those gems are worth at the end of the game, or at least who's got the majority of those gems. And there's also going to be these turn order cards, which kind of put in a communal area, and each player is going to be given a bunch of these different cylinders with different numbers, varying from 0 up to 4. You've got a bunch of different scorecards, and each player will have a shield as well, because shielding your cylinders is quite an important part of the game. So before I go any further with how the game plays, I thought I should touch on how the scoring actually works. So you have a bunch of different criteria here on what's going to score at the end, and this bar here is probably the biggest, where it's basically explaining that the highest gem on this track here, so let's just say at the end the blue ended right up here, and this green ended here, the yellow ended there, and the red one ended there. It basically means that the most powerful gem, i.e. the one highest on the track, and the player with the most of those is going to get a massive 24 points. The player with the second most is going to get 18, third most 12, and the player with the least is only going to get 6. And the further these gems depreciate in their value is going to give the corresponding amount of points. So the second strongest gem, i.e. the green one here, is going to give the majority holder 20, the second most 15th, the third 10th, and the last player 5th. And all the way down to the least valuable gem, which at a maximum is going to offer the player with the most 12 points. The black gems work on a sliding scale here, which basically equates to being worth around 4 points each. The first one only being worth 1, but the second one 4, and then 8, then 12, and 16, and so on. And there's also some scoring here based on this King's region, where the player with the most of their cylinders, or the highest value of their cylinders, is going to get a number of points equal to this track here. So again, the player with the most is going to get 12 points, and the player with the fewest value there, or the lowest value, is going to get 0 points. So let's talk about the actual gameplay. So the first thing you're going to do is that you are going to pick 2 of your available cylinders at your choice, and then you're going to put them face down in front of your screen, like so. And all the players are going to do this at the same time. So let's just say, for example, each player is chosen, and I've done this without any thought or anything, and then they're going to reveal them simultaneously, and whoever's got the highest value of those cylinders is going to choose the player order in which these placements are going to be resolved for the turn. So as you can see here, the black is quite strongly beating the ties here. So therefore, the black player will get to choose the order in which players deploy their workers onto the board. And this can be quite important, because going last is quite a strong advantage, because you can then choose where to place your cylinders after you know where everybody else has gone, or at least have a bit more control in relation to that. But at the same time, the player with the lowest number has a slight edge when it comes to breaking ties. So once that player order has been determined, in turn order, you're going to start deploying your cylinders onto the map, trying to gain majorities in those different quarters and those different sections within those quarters. Also, you're trying to influence the market to your needs. So to do that, you're going to pick two of your cylinders, you're going to put one face up and you're going to put one face down. And as you can see here, some of these cylinders have 0 on them, which are kind of bluffing pieces to try and deter your opponents from going to certain regions. So normally, as you'd probably put them face down, just so you can kind of mislead your opponents. And then you can put them wherever you want on this map, putting in these different sections. So let's just say here I put one here and I put one over here. And whenever you place one in the market, you are going to instantly gain a point just for making that choice. And then it's going to go to the next person. So again, maybe the black player will put one face down here, and they'll put one face up over here. And then it'll go to the blue player. The blue player will place one face down here and maybe one face up over here. Until all players have placed all of their cylinders, or at least have had 4 rounds of placing their cylinders, where they're going to have 1 remaining left behind their screen. But let's talk about why we're actually trying to place these cylinders and what we're trying to achieve by doing that. So once each player has placed all of their available cylinders, it's going to look something like this. And then starting from region 1 and going around to region 4, you're going to calculate majority. So the first thing you're going to do is, actually before you do anything, is you're going to pick the remaining cylinder behind your screen and add them to your original 2 cylinders that you use to determine turn order. And this is going to be your new tiebreaker. So if there's ever a tie in terms of numerical values on each of these sections, then you're going to look back to the cylinders that you haven't used in that round, and if there's still a tie, you're going to go back to the original turn order. So keeping a powerful one back is quite important, because quite often there will be ties in terms of majorities. So as I said, you're going to start with the first region here. You're going to flip everything face up to see what we've got on show here. And then you're going to determine who's got the majority here. So as you can see, the yellow player's got a total value of 7, the blue's got 4, the red's also got 4, and the black's only got 1. So then the person with, or the player with the highest value is going to pick 2 of the gems available on this card here, bearing in mind that the big one here is worth 2 gems. So you can take them however you see fit, and also the whites are wild. So let's just say the yellow player took a white gem and a red gem. And then the next player in second place would take the next available one. So let's just say they took a green, and then the final player in third place would take the red. Whoever's last will not get anything, unfortunately. But then you are going to determine who's got the majority in each of the different sections within those quarters, and getting different rewards as you go. So the outer rim here will reward the player with a black gem, which again harks back to bonus scoring you get on the sliding scale here. So, even if you're not going to win the majority, getting one of the majorities within the majority can potentially get you some points. And whoever's got the majority in this section here is going to get, I believe it's 3 victory points. Whoever's got the inner one here is going to get the bonus card, which are pretty cool, interesting powers that they can use throughout the game, which I will explain what each of those do a little bit later. And then you're going to resolve them as you go around here, again taking the rewards, taking your gems, and potentially taking those bonus cards as well. And then you're going to go on to the market. So the market is quite a significant part of the game. Again, you're going to reveal everything face up, so we know where each player actually stands in terms of their majorities. And then you're going to calculate each row and each column. So as you can see here, the red player has the highest value on this row, therefore they are going to acquire that blue gem. This one here, they've all tied, so it will go back to their tiebreaker in terms of the ones they haven't used. So let's just say the yellow took this one here, white one's also being wild, so you swap it with one of the available gems. And also this one here, where this red gem will be divided out. And then you're going to have a look at the numerical value on each of these columns. So as you can see here, this column here on top of the blue gem has a combined value of 5. This one has 3, this one has 1, and this one has nothing. So what you're going to do then in that order is that you are going to move the one with the highest value in that column up 2 spaces, like so. The one with the second most, you're going to move up 1 space. The third most is going to go down 1 space, and the lowest one is going to go down 2 spaces. And again, that is going to completely be a fluctuating market, and that's going to determine who is going to score points at the end of the game based on this card here. So if you've got a load of these blue gems throughout the game through getting the majorities on here, then you might want to completely try and skyrocket the value of those gems so that you get a whole bunch of points. And once all the majorities on the main board and market have been calculated, you're going to pick one of your 3 cylinders, which you haven't used that round, which determined tiebreakers. You're going to pick one of them that you wanted to. And let's just say I pick this one here. Then you're going to put them into the king's area face down. Each player is going to be doing this at the same time. You're going to replenish that one with a generic 2-piece to add to your supply. And again, this is important because at the end of the game, at the end of the 4 rounds, whoever's got the highest combined value of pieces in that king's region is going to get some bonus points based on this scale here. And that process is going to repeat a further 3 times, but in the 4th round, instead of competing for different player powers, you're simply competing for a wild gem, which of course can be a massive game changer. And of course, at the end of the game, the person with the most victory points, after calculating the majorities in each of the colours, using these scales and their position on the market track, is going to be the winner. Also, you're going to add your black gems, of course, and calculate the king's score here for those additional points. So let's talk about my feelings about Ys. So first off, I will say that I really enjoy the way that these cylinders are used in multiple different ways. And of course you want to be using them in order to influence the main board because, again, you've only got a few of those higher markers and getting those majorities to get the best gems is, of course, of paramount importance. But at the same time, you want to be influencing the market by placing your good ones here so that all the gems that you've collected previously are going to hold their value and potentially be the most valuable, or ideally be the most valuable gem available, of course, which is going to be one of the biggest game changers in terms of getting points. So you want to use them for keeping your gems strong by gaining the gems in the first place, which has this cool kind of matrix system, which is fantastic. And of course, influencing not only the different quarters to get the gems, but the different regions within the quarters to get the bonuses, such as the great bonus powers, even just straight up points and those black gems as well. But at the same time, before that even starts, you want to be holding back your good gems, so your good cylinders, in order to break turn order, or in order to break ties, and to choose the turn order in the first place. Because again, going last is such a strong position to be in, but it can make a difference between breaking those ties. So yeah, I love the different uses of these, even in terms of committing them to the King's region here, because at the end of the game you can actually get quite a bit of points by doing that, and it's not something to be looked over. So I really do love that kind of different ways that you can use these cylinders to your advantage, and knowing when to spend them and when to hold them back, when to bluff with them as well. Because you might think, you shove a 0 down somewhere and, it's not, people might think it's a real strong piece, so they won't want to compete in that area because they don't want to waste their pieces. But at the same time, they're probably bearing in mind that it could be a 0, so they might potentially be able to beat it with a single piece. So this has a great element of bluffing. And of course, that area majority in terms of not only the quarters, but the thirds within those quarters, it just adds an additional wrinkle to the gameplay. And again, sometimes you want to compete in these regions, not only to actually, you might not actually be that interested in the gem because you can't win all the regions, but just winning one of those bonuses within those regions can be really important. I also love the scoring system in this game. I think commodity speculation is quickly becoming one of my favourite elements of these type of games. I love the fact that scoring isn't concrete. It's constantly in flux. You have to stay on the ball and make sure that your investments are going to pay off at the end. Because if they don't, and you've got a hell of a lot of these red gems here, and they're going to be worth hardly any points compared to the other ones, then you're going to have to do something about that, which means you're going to have to start investing in the market. And all the same time, people are fighting over different things. There's a real tug of war going on. I'm trying to keep the market to your tastes and to your preferences. And it's such a dynamic game, and that extra element of bluffing just really does come together wonderfully. I also really enjoy these player power cards, which you can acquire by controlling this palace region of the board. These are all really strong, but not game breaking, and they're just really worth having. Such as ones here is taking two gems of your choice, which of course is great at the end of the game because you can really pick the ones that are worth the highest value. You got ones here that you can manipulate the market to how you see fit, just straight up points, swapping these gem cards around. So if you know that you went for a region and somebody's beat you on that quarter, then you can say, you know what, you're not having that white gem, I'm going to move it to the one I am controlling and I'm going to have that white gem. You got ones here which you can switch your pieces over again, so if you find yourself being trumped on the board, then you can swap it with another one and maybe beat that tie. Ones where you can move one of your pieces, so if you see an opportunity to jump into an empty region, you can get that with very little input. And swapping gems for one another, playing both of your cylinders face down for the round, such as playing ones in front of your screen rather than ones behind your screen. So again, you can really kind of be flexible and originally break the tie to get the turn order in your favour, and then still commit them to the board. So again, that kind of pulling the wool over your opponent's eyes is really cool with this one. Getting straight up points, breaking all ties for the round, and even ramping up the points in terms of controlling the middle regions so that you get 5 points rather than the standard 3. So these are all really great, certainly worth competing for, and it makes that extra competition of controlling the inner regions of these regions in the first place. So yeah, I really like the way that those cards are put into the game. When a game like this is so well made and so so concise in what it does, I think these kind of games from this region or this area in kind of board game history really did a great job of adding these player powers and making them all seem balanced but all seem really enjoyable and powerful at the same time. So yeah, I love the way that these cards are embedded in the game. They really do add a lot of flavour. The time investment and just general uptime is fantastic with Ys. Only 4 rounds, and those 4 rounds are pretty snappy because you are literally just picking a couple of cylinders, putting one face up and one face down, sometimes taking a bit of a gamble, so there's not a huge amount of analysis paralysis, which I think is great. And that's actually one massive, I think, advantage to this game, is that you do just have to take those speculative punts at times, and you can't just carefully map things down or map things out to a T. So I actually quite like the little element of surprise here, how people place these things. You can take a kind of calculated guess about what's been placed and what hasn't. Are they likely going to manipulate the market? So you can take an educated guess, but you're never going to know exactly, which just keeps the game ticking along a bit nicer than most things. And also just the 4 rounds is just completely the sweet spot on what this game needs to achieve. The game does say, or the box does say 60 to 90 minutes. I would strongly advocate this one is more accurately around that 60-minute mark. And I think the ratio between the gameplay and the time it takes is really up there with the best. So the interaction between the players, I think, is really good. I mean, there is, of course, tough competition into getting the best gems, and then there's competition within that competition to get the best regions within those quarters. People are struggling with a market. You want to boost up your gems, and tank other people's gems as well. So everything you're doing here is influencing what other people, or influenced by what other people do, and you have to bear in mind where they're standing on the board. So yeah, I do like the way as well. And the competition for the cards as well was great, because these are, when used in the right time, they can really kind of screw over your opponents, but not in a malicious or destructive way, but in a cunning way. So yeah, I really do like the way that everything comes together here. And when you do have that odd got you moment, or that old not take that moment, but the old, and where these cards are played cleverly to catch you off guard, you knew that they had those cards because they'd been acquired earlier, and they'd actually fairly won those cards by bidding the most. So it's not like they're going to come up with something out of the dark and not have a shot of preparing for it. You just have to bear in mind that you know they've had those cards behind their screens and they haven't used them yet. So let's talk about Ys in terms of its production value and just general artwork and aesthetic. I think the game is obviously synonymous with the time period where this was released. This is one of those Euro games by Ystari, which came out, to the early to mid 2000s, and they all had this kind of beige appeal to them with this very primitive artwork. And you are either going to be in two camps. You're going to love it for its charm, or you're going to hate it for its almost blandness. I'm certainly in the earlier camp, and I think this game looks so cool. I think it's has a real kind of whimsical look to it. It feels like a curio. I just think that it looks great. This is what I love about board games that look like this. But I completely appreciate that's not going to be the case with most people. They want something a bit more suitable for this kind of era in modern board gaming where things are so lavish and so polished. But yeah, this one is certainly rough around the edges in the way it looks. In terms of the production, I think there's some good choices here. These cylinders are a great job of doing what they do. Nice and clear in what they represent. are just a good thing to put, face up or face down, and they're nice and solid and stable. They're not going to fall over the place. They don't take up too much space, and I think they're a really good component choice. The other things, such as the cards and stuff, they're all okay. Just the smaller sided cards, decent quality. Do have black borders, which do get a bit chipped over time, but no issue whatsoever. The actual gems themselves are a bit strange. They're kind of these little plastic tiles that you don't really see these in board games nowadays, but I don't dislike them. They're perfectly fine. But yeah, overall, it's probably your standard fare of what you'd expect for a Euro game of this era, and I've got no issues with that whatsoever, and in fact, I really like the way it looks. I believe there is a 5-player variant with this game with the expansion, but talking about the pure base game as I am here, it does say, only plays at 3 or 4 players, and at either of those player counts, you get the full experience. It's perfectly fine, and you get, it doesn't matter what you play it as. The only thing that changes is that in a 3-player game, that one of these rows here in the market are taken out of the equation, so that you can only compete over 2 gems for the round. So overall, Ys, it's a really interesting game. So area control games, area majority games, and general bidding and bluffing games are such a saturated kind of area of the board game market. And I say this one is probably one of the best synergies amongst those mechanisms that I've ever seen. So I love how quick and easy this game is to play, but it still has some great decisions. Even that extra wrinkle of, the areas and the areas being competed for is so interesting. I love the scoring system. I think it's so interesting. And as I said earlier, certainly one of my favourite things at the moment is speculating on what your things are going to be worth at the end. And I also like the fact that you aren't scoring points based on the individual gems. Because, if you score, say, 5 points for each of your blue gems and only 2 points for each of your red gems, that really does create the potential for more runaway leaders. Whereas this one, only the majority is going to score a very set and fixed amount of points, which keeps the game feeling a bit more open. And, even if you're not competing too well here, you still have the potential to catch up through the black gems, through the King's region here as well, and of course through the points you've acquired throughout the game by controlling those central regions. But yeah, I love the flow of this game, I love the pace of it. That bidding and bluffing aspect just work wonderfully. Bluffing isn't something that I'm normally, is my kind of speciality in gaming. It's not something I really go for, but this is certainly one of the best use of bluffing that I've ever seen, particularly when it works so kind of harmoniously with the more Euro side of things. The player cards are great, and you know what? If this game was released in 2021, I would say this is a really interesting, fresh design. And the fact this is, we're talking 16, 17 years old now, I find that baffling. This is such a great design, so smooth, so much fun. And yeah, that's probably one of the main things I take away from this, is just how fun it is. Because this ticks all the boxes for me. It's so accessible, has great choices. It's going to appeal to more casual gamers as well as those more stuffy Euro gamers. Yeah, this just ticks all the boxes for me. So massively impressed with Ys. I adore this game. So certainly gets a strong shield of quality for me. Check this one out if you can get your hands on a copy. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you found it useful or at least somewhat entertaining, then please hit like and consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. Additionally, if you wish to support the show, because I am a one-man operation and I don't get any support from publishers, then please consider backing on Patreon at patreon.com/chairman of the board, where you can back for as little as £2 per month. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.